My son had bent the forks on his CRF50F, and the original fork tubes, just these tubes themselves, are about $75 a piece from Honda, the OEM Honda ones. So then I saw these ones on eBay, which were 70 bucks plus shipping from a company out in California. And I decided, well, hey, those look pretty good. And it was the tubes with the upper fork tubes and the tree, the whole thing. Basically what you get is this. You get this assembled with these tubes in them and even these cups. And first thing I noticed when I took them out of the box is the quality is pretty shabby. The colors are pretty bad mismatch, but I mean you can live with that. But I took them out of the box, and right off the bat I noticed that there's some pretty good sized scrapes and look up here, chips in the powder coat. If this is even powder coat, I don't even know if it is. Might just be spray paint. But it just looks like, you can see the quality of the powder coating or paint job on this is pretty bad. You can actually see it's very thin right here. I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but it's just not very good looking. So I decided, well, since all the parts should be interchangeable, I won't use this. I mean, that could have been scratched up by the fact that it comes kind of poorly packaged. You can see there's not a lot of packing material that was in here. They were wrapped in this little light foam pad. Comes with the top plate here. Now, there's also no bolts in here. So the interesting thing about this is they expect you to reuse these two bolts, because you've got to take these two bolts out to drop these tubes out. You also have to disengage a couple of clips in the bottom here, which again wouldn't be an issue, except that when I put these tubes and installed them in here and was trying to thread these in, I couldn't get them threaded. So then I took the tubes out and I found out that neither one of the original bolts would thread into the threads at the top of the on top of the spring. There's a little plunger assembly in here, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so here's the part that goes into the top of the tube, and that bolt that I just was showing you is supposed to engage into this threaded hole. It won't go in there. There's something wrong with the threads. They're either different size completely, which I kind of doubt, or they're just poorly made threads, which is what I suspect, because as I did try and put the bolt in, it would catch maybe a couple of threads and then it would start to cross thread. So I might be able to run a tap through there and fix those. The problem is they should be metric, and I don't have any metric taps, so I don't want to have to deal with that. I'm sure if I call this outfit in California, they'll tell me, well, I'm assuming that they would replace them, but I already waited a week for these to come in. I don't feel like waiting another week while I ship these back, pay to have these shipped back there, and then have them ship me another set that may not even be any better than these. So here's what I did. What I found is that I took my original bent fork tubes that I kept. You can see how this is bent. And what I found is that at this point right here on this collar, there's a hole, and you can drive out this spring pin. And when you drive out this spring pin, you can actually take this assembly off. So I took this assembly from my original fork tube here off of these fork tubes, drove the pins out of these replacement tubes, and basically put the original spring assembly, which has this part that is not screwed up on it, onto the new cheap replacement lowers. So I took the upper spring assembly from the originals, which weren't damaged, put them on the lower tubes, and then assembled them, and the bolts threaded right in. So there's clearly something wrong with this upper piece right here. The threaded hole is junk. So just wanted to put this up on online so that in case you're thinking about buying the cheap aftermarket eBay front fork assemblies for your son's or daughter's CRF50F, keep into mind you may run into a few problems. Now, I'm not happy about the quality of what they sent me, but the end result is that I was able to effect a workable repair, get the bike back up and running, still at a fraction of the cost of what it would have cost me for the new OEM lower forks here. So right now, for the time being, we're going to run it this way because it's just not worth the hassle of going through the return process to try and get something that may end up coming in and have the same problems for all I know. But it's obviously a quality control issue with the whoever the manufacturer is of this aftermarket product.